Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Sayyidina wa nabiyyana wa maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So Ibn Hajar rahimahullah explained a munkar narration is وَإِن وَقَعَتِ الْمُخَالَفَةُ مَعَ الضَّعْفِ. This is all that he said. That if there is a contradiction with weakness. So now to ascertain what exactly he means with this here, we will understand it from the example. That is it a weak narrator differing with someone who is reliable, or is it a weak narrator who is extremely weak, differing with someone who is also weak, but not as weak as him? So we'll understand it is more easier from the example. So he says, مثاله ما رواه ابن أبي حاتم من طريق حبي بن حبيب وهو أخو حمزة بن حبيب الزيات المقرئ عن أبي إسحاق عن الأيزار بن حريث عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: من أقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة وحج وصام وقر الضيف دخل الجنة. قال أبو حاتم: هو منكر لأن غيره من الثقات رواه عن أبي إسحاق موقوفا وهو المعروف. So here he brings the example. He said that look at this particular narrator, the son of Abu Hatim rahimahullah, Abdurrahman bin Abu Hatim. He brings with his son to Hubay ibn Habib. So Hubay ibn Habib is the brother of Hamza bin Habib al-Ziyat al-Muqri, who was extremely pious, and he was known to be a Zahid, also really pious person. But his brother here, Hubay ibn Habib, he was regarded as a weak narrator. Ibn Adi rahimahullah mentions him in Kamil, and he says that حدث بأحاديث لا يرويها غيره من عن الثقات. This here is actually a good point to note, that why he's regarding him as weak, because he comes with strange ahadith, that he's the only one who is narrating it, no one else narrates it. Like that, Alama Haythami rahmahullah said with regards to him, وَهُوَ ضَعِيف in Majma' al-Zawaid, and some regarded him to be extremely weak, like Ibn Hajar rahmahullah wrote in Lisan al-Mizan that وَهَاهُ Abu Zur'a, that Abu Zur'a rahimahullah is regarded him as extremely weak. So here you have this weak narrator, Hubay ibn Habib. And now look at the remaining sanad. He is narrating from Abu Ishaq. So remember, that's one person. And Abu Ishaq is narrating from Izar bin Hurayth, who's narrating from Ibn Abbas. So you have this weak person and three narrators above him. And then Ibn Abbas is narrating it from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So that is how he is narrating it. And then he narrates the hadith that man aqama salah, whoever performs salah, gives zakah, performs hajj, fast in the month of Ramadan, and is a good host to his guests, then he will enter Jannah. So even though the meaning of this narration is correct, obviously a person who fulfills all of this, definitely he will enter Jannah, but it is a munkar because of the sanad. So this is what Alama Mullah al-Qari rahmallah clarified. He said that it's munkar ay بسبب إسناده وإن كان معناه صحيحا. So because of the sanad, it's regarded as munkar. And here Ibn Hajar rahimahullah quotes like proof on how it is munkar. So he says قال أبو حاتم هو munkar. He says that Abu Hatim rahimahullah has mentioned that it is munkar. So he is quoting it. It is as if he's quoting the verdict of Abu Hatim rahimahullah. But this here is incorrect, because Abu Hatim rahimahullah did not say it is munkar. This rather the verdict is actually from Abu Zur'a rahimahullah. Abu Zur'a was the cousin of Abu Hatim. You can see it's the son of Abu Hatim who is narrating this here. So his father was Abu Hatim. Abu Hatim, his name is Muhammad ibn Idris, just like Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah. But it's not the father who graded this here as munkar. Rather, it is uncle who graded it as a munkar. So the son of Abu Hatim rahimahullah, he mentions it like this here when you go back directly to the source. And that is the reason why it's so important to go back to the source. So he mentions it that was su'ila Abu Zur'a an Ḥadīth, that Abu Zur'a was asked regarding this narration. So Abu Zur'a was asked after that he mentioned qala Abu Zur'a هذا حديث munkar. Abu Zur'a has said that this here is a munkar narration. And what's the reason that it is munkar? إنما هو عن ابن عباس موقوفا. So like we're saying that Abu Zur'a was the cousin. So Abu Hatim, his name, like Imam Shafi, rahmallah, as the name is Muhammad bin Idris al-Razi, and he was born in the year 195 Hijri. You know, Imam Bukhari was born in 194, so he was born in 195, and he passed away in the year 277 Hijri. And Abu Zur'a, his name was Ubaidullah bin Abdul Karim. Alama Khatib, rahmallah, mentions that he was born in the year 200 Hijri, and there are three other views also. But this is the preferred view that he was born in the year 200 Hijri and he passed away in the year 264. So two totally separate people. It is actually Abu Zur'a rahimahullah who said that it is munkar. And he gave the reason. So Ibn Hajar rahimahullah mentions it لأن غيره من الثقات رواه عن أبي إسحاق موقوفا وهو المعروف. But we have explained how exactly he said it. He just said it إنما هو عن ابن عباس موقوفا. He didn't mention it like how Ibn Hajar rahimahullah quoted it here. So basically you have this narrator Hubayb. He is weak and he is differing with someone else who is reliable. This other person is Ma'mar. So Ma'mar, he narrates it also from Abu Ishaq. And Ma'mar is a reliable narrator. And he brings it with the same sanad which we just quoted. Abu Ishaq narrating from Izar bin Hurayth. But then he mentions it like this here, that Abu Ishaq mentioned it from Izar. أن ابن عباس أتاه الأعراب فقالوا إنا نقيم الصلاة ونؤتي الزكاة ونحج البيت ونصوم رمضان وإن ناسا من المهاجرين يقولون لسنا على شيء. So this is how he's mentioning that people came to Ibn Abbas. It has nothing to do with Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People came to Ibn Abbas. Some Bedouins came to Ibn Abbas radiyallahu an. This is in Shu'ab al-Iman. Actually, first Imam Abdul Razak rahmallah narrated it in his Musannaf. And then from there, Imam Bayhaqi rahmallah, with the same sanad via Abdul Razak, he mentioned it in his Shu'ab al-Iman. So he mentions that people came to Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu and they told him that we're performing salah and we're giving zakah and we're performing hajj. But there's others who are saying that we have no value, lasna ala shay, there is no merit in what we are doing. So then he's Izar said that فقال ابن عباس. So Ibn Abbas then responded to this and said من أقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة وحج البيت وصام رمضان وقرأ الضيف دخل الجنة. So you can see here it's a statement of Ibn Abbas and it's the whole incident revolving around Ibn Abbas. This is how a reliable, a honest, a trustworthy and a strong narrator is narrating it as a statement of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu. But a weak narrator, Hubayb, he is narrating it as a statement of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I told you that when looking at the definition which Ibn Hajar rahmallah mentioned, وَإِنْ وَقَعَتِ الْمُخَالَفَةُ مَعَ الضَّعْفِ. Then I told you after the example we will understand what he is meaning. So from here we can understand that when he said مَعَ الضَّعْفِ, he intends that munkar is where you have a weak narrator, like you have Hubayb who's weak, contradicting a reliable narrator. So someone who is weak, and I also quoted to you that some said that he is extremely weak and he is going against someone who is reliable. This is what is understood from this example here. However, in Yawaqit wa Durar, we find that the author explained it such that it means where you have a weak narrator differing with another narrator who is also weak, but he is better than him. So on both in both of the chains of transmission, you have weak narrators. And for those of you who done the book on Usul al-Hadith of Abdul Haq Dahlawi, which you do before Mishkat, it's printed in the beginning of Mishkat. So if you remember there that Abdul Haq Dahlawi rahmallah, he explained a munkar narration exactly like this here. He said, wal munkar hadithun rawahu da'if mukhalifan liman huwa ad'afu minhu. That a munkar narration is where you have a weak narrator contradicting someone who is even weaker. So in both chains you have weak narrators. Yes, but this narration here also the Ustad will explain to you when you are going to do it, that you can see here which narration he is calling the Munkar narration. He is calling the Munkar narration the one where you have the slightly weak narrator, because he's saying hadithun rawahu da'if mukhalifan liman huwa ad'afu minhu. So the one with a slightly weak narrator, that is what is called a munkar narration. From the example here which Ibn Hajar rahmallah is giving, we find that it's actually a weak narrator contradicting someone who is strong, who is a thiqah. So then, Allama Munawi rahmallah quoted that one of the students of Ibn Hajar rahmallah, they mentioned that Ibn Hajar rahmallah, when explaining this dars, then he said, so the way Allama Munawi rahmallah mentions, he says, وَنَقَلَ بَعْضُ تَلَامِذَةِ الْمُؤَلِّفِ عَنْهُ أَنَّهُ قَالَ الْمُرَادْ بِقَوْلِ وَإِنْ وَقَعَتِ الْمُخَالَفَةِ مَعَ الضَّعْفِ أَيْ يَكُونْ فِي الْجَانِبَيْنِ. You can see, فِي الْجَانِبَيْنِ, that means in both sanad you have weak narrators. So that then goes against his example, because in his example, yeah, you have only in the one sanad a weak narrator, and in the other sanad you have a thiqa narrator, a reliable narrator. So from the example, we understand munkar as meaning where a weak narrator is contradicting someone who is thiqa. That's what we're understanding from the example. But when he was explaining the dars, what he said, that in both sanads you have weak narrators. So then that student then actually responded in told Ibn Hajar, but your example goes against this here. So Ulama Munawi rahmallah presents the entire conversation which ensued, and he says that قال تلميذ المصنف المذكور لكن ما مثلت he told him that the example which you have given, there's a weak narrator who is contradicting a thiqa narrator. So Ibn Hajar rahmallah then said that his point here was just to show mukhalafa. So the highlight here is not to show the status of the narrator, rather the highlight is to show mukhalafa. But then you can see he's quoting here one of the mutaqaddimun who are calling this here munkar narration. And again, the point which you always stress upon, that why are we learning istilahat? So whether his point is to highlight the mukhalafa or not, the fact is that we have the mutaqaddimun using the word munkar for where a weak narrator is contradicting a reliable narrator. So now, when you're done, Sheikh Abdullah Sirajuddin's commentary on Bayquniyah, then on page 172, you done there that al-munkar huwa al-hadith al-fard alladhi khalafa ma rawahu thiqa. So can you call us here incorrect? Can you say that he's making a mistake here? It's incorrect how he's defining it? No, because the mutaqaddimun did use it in this way. So in this, you can see that you'll have different meanings of a munkar narration. Some would say that it's where you have a weak narrator contradicting those who are it's where you have more weaker narrators contradicting that person who is just a little weak. That's the one way of explaining munkar. And then another way of explaining munkar is where you have a weak narrator contradicting someone who is a thiqah. So Ibn Hajar rahmallah then says, وَعُرِفَ بِهَذَا أَنَّ بَيْنَ الشَّاذِ وَالْمُنْكَرُ عُمُومًا وَخُصُوصًا مِنْ وَجْهٍ. That from here we can see that between shadh and munkar there is umum wa khusus min wajhin. Now what is the meaning of umum wa khusus min wajhin? So what is intended here by umum wa khusus min wajhin? Rather put it in that way, because you know umum wa khusus min wajhin, especially in mantiq, it's also used as a terminology, and in usul al-fiqh it's also used as a terminology. So that's why I say what is intended here. So Shaykh Nuruddin Itr rahmallah, you can see in the ta'liq, he explains it that العموم والخصوص من وجه ويسمى أيضا العموم والخصوص الوجهي هو أن يشترك لفظان أو أكثر في صفة ثم يفترق كل واحد بخصلة يختص بها دون غيره. So the way the meaning of it here is that two things, they are the same in some aspects but they differ in other ways. So now to quote Alama Tahir Jazairi's explanation on this here, that how is shadh and munkar the same in some ways but differing in other ways. So he says that if you have to look in some aspects, they are totally different. فهما متباينان لا يصدق أحدهما على شيء مما يصدق عليه الآخر وهما يشتركان في اشتراط المخالفة. That both of them, in shaz also there is mukhalafa, and in munkar also there is mukhalafa. But so in that way they are the same, that there is mukhalafa. But then ويمتاز الشاذ عنه بكون راويه ثقة. That in shaz the rawi is ثقة. ويمتاز المنكر عن الشاذ بكون راويه غير ثقة. So he mentioned this here in توجيه النظر, that the way that munkar differs from shaz is that the narrator here is in munkar is غير ثقة, that you have a weak narrator who is differing, and we have explained either he's differing with someone who is less weaker than him, or he's differing with someone who is reliable. So now this here, like we said, that it goes against how it's used in mantiq, because in mantiq it basically means that they are both the same and then they differ in some ways, but here from the beginning they are both different. So then Mullah al-Qari rahmallah explains that here it's more you taking into consideration the lughwi meaning, you are not taking into consideration the technical meaning of umum wa khusus min wajhin. Thereafter, Ibn Hajar rahmallah then makes here a very strange statement, and he says, okay, first he explained that لأن بينهما اجتماعا في اشتراط المخالفة وافتراق في أن الشاذ رواية ثقة أو صدوق والمنكر رواية ضعيف. Then he says the strange statement وقد غفل من سوى بينهما. He's saying that those who regard shadh and munkar as the same thing, they are negligent. So he's saying that they are negligent, and he says, Wallahu ta'ala alam. So this here, we say that it's a strange statement. Firstly, who is referring to here? You see again here in the ta'liq, in the footnote, Sheikh Nuruddin Itr says, لَعَلَّهُ يُرِيدُ الْإِمَامَ ibn Salah. That probably he is referring to Ibn Salah rahimahullah. So he's mentioning that probably, but there were so many commentators here who were convinced that definitely he is referring to Alama ibn Salah. Like if you look in the Hashia of Kamal ibn Abi Sharif, likewise Alama Qurani rahimahullah, they all knew with absolute conviction that he is referring to Ibn Salah rahimahullah. So he's saying Ibn Salah rahimahullah was negligent, and he regarded shadh and munkar as the same thing. And that even Mullah al-Qari rahimahullah, he mentioned here that أراد بابن الصلاح فإنه صوى بينهما حيث لم يميز بينهما, and وقال المنكر بمعنى الشاذ. That's what Mullah al-Qari rahmallah also says. So it is obvious that definitely he is indeed referring to Ibn Salah rahimahullah. Ibn Salah rahimahullah clearly used both words interchangeably, and he has enough evidence to prove why he used both words as synonyms, why he used both words interchangeably. But then also, besides Ibn Salah rahimahullah, it was also the practice of many scholars of the past that they used the word munkar in the meaning of shaz, and they used the word shaz in the meaning of munkar. So we can take it a step further. We can say that it is not only referring to Ibn Salah rahimahullah, the statement of his وَقَدْ غَفَلَ مَنْ سَوَّى بَيْنَهُمَا, this مَنْ سَوَّى بَيْنَهُمَا, it can transcend Ibn Salah rahimahullah, and it could refer to all the scholars before Ibn Hajar rahimahullah. So by saying that those who use the two terms interchangeably, they were negligent, then it's inevitably going to mean that the such senior scholars like Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah, Imam Hakim rahimahullah, all of them were negligent because they use both words interchangeably. So whoever, man, it's am. So whoever you regarded both the same. So obviously we can't say that these great scholars were negligent. That so many scholars use both terms interchangeably. They use shaz in the meaning of munkar, and they use munkar in the meaning of shaz. So that's why Allama Qasim rahmallah said, وَقَدْ أَطْلَقُوا فِي غَيْرِ مَوْضِعٍ نَكَارَةٍ عَلَى رِوَايَةِ الثِّقَةِ مُخَالِفًا لِغَيْرِهِ, saying that there were scholars of the past who used it. And then he also gives the example. The example which he gives here is the same example which Allama Iraqi rahmallah gave in At-Taqir wal-Idah in his Nukat on Ibn Salah. It's where Imam Abu Dawud rahmallah, he narrated a hadith, and this hadith goes by Hammam, who narrates from Ibn Jurayj, who narrates from Zuhri. So see, this is how the sanad is. That before the Sahabi, you have three narrators: Hammam, from Ibn Jurayj, from Zuhri. And then he narrated from Anas radiallahu an as an action of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, saying that كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا دخل الخلاء وضع خاتمه. That Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he would enter the toilet, then he would remove his ring. So after mentioning this narration, Imam Abu Dawud rahmallah said, هذا حديث munkar. That this here is a munkar narration. And why he said? He said because here you have Hammam who is narrating from Ibn Jurayj and saying that Ibn Jurayj heard it directly from Imam Zuhri. So this is the first problem which comes about. Why? Because it's actually Ibn Jurayj narrating from Ziyad bin Sa'ad who's narrating from Imam Zuhri. So there's a missing link here. It's not Ibn Jurayj directly from Imam Zuhri, rather it's Ibn Jurayj from Ziyad bin Sa'ad from Imam Zuhri. Actually, yeah, you remember in the past we also mentioned this whole thing with regards to Hammam and Ibn Jurayj, that how Imam Hakim rahmallah, that Hammam is also a narrator of Sahih al-Bukhari and Ibn Jurayj is also a narrator of Sahih al-Bukhari. But we said that you can't just look at the fact that they are narrators of Sahih al-Bukhari and therefore regard the narration as authentic. And that is what Imam Hakim rahimahullah done and say that it fulfills the conditions of Bukhari and Muslim. So yeah, Allama Bukhari rahimahullah in an-Nukat al-Wafiyya, he mentions this here with regards to Imam Hakim. He says, وَلَيْسَ كَمَا ظَنَّ وَإِنَّمَا أُتِيَ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ حَيْثُ إِنَّ شَيْخَيْنِ أَخْرَجَا لِجَمِيعِ رُوَاةِ السَّنَدِ انفرادا. That independently they narrated from each one of these narrators. وفاته أنه لا يلزم أن يكون على شرطهما إلا إذا كان السند مركبا بالهيئة التي أخرجاه بها. He's saying that they narrated from each one of these, but they did not narrate from such a sanad where Hammam narrates from Ibn Jurayj. Because, and then he explains, he says, فإن الرجل قد يكون مع ثقته وجلالته ضعيفا في بعض الناس كما مضى تحريره في مراتب الصحيح وهذا السند من ذلك فإن همام لقي ابن جريج بالبصرة. That Hammam met Ibn Jurayj in Basra, وابن جريج وقع له الخطأ فيما حدث به في البصرة. When he was in Basra, he made errors in his. So Ibn Hajar also mentions it in his Nukat. This is just a side a point which came to mind now when mentioning this here. So nevertheless, yeah, that you can see that the first point is Ibn Jurayj is actually narrated from Ziyad bin Sa'ad, who narrated from Imam Zuhri. And thereafter, the wording of the word in the action which of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they mentioned that when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would go to the bathroom, then he would remove his ring. But the actual wording is that anna Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ittakhadha khataman min waraqin thumma alqahu. So you can see it's completely different. So then Imam Abu Dawud rahmallah says, "Wal wahmu fihi min Hammamin wa lam yarwihi illa Hammam." That the wahm here is from Hammam, but as we mentioned, that Hammam is a narrator. Hammam bin Al-Maqasim is saying the exact same thing. That هذا حديث منكر مع أن راوي Hammam ibn Yahya وهو ثقة احتج به أهل الصحيح, that he is a ثقة راوي and is so ثقة that Imam Bukhari rahmallah actually narrated from him. So Imam Abu Dawud rahmallah still graded it as a munkar, where whilst Hammam is reliable. So you have here a reliable narrator, and he is differing with other reliable narrators. And Ibn Hajar rahmallah defined that as shadh, but yet Imam Abu Dawud rahmallah is using the word munkar on it. So Imam Abu Dawud is not using the word shadh, because shadh is where you have a reliable narrator contradicting others who are more or more preferred. So here it's a reliable narrator differing with those who are more preferred, and Imam Abu Dawud rahmallah is using the word munkar. So this statement قَدْ غَفَلَ مَنْ سَوَّى بَيْنَهُمَا, is it also going to apply to Imam Abu Dawud rahmahullah, because he is now using the two terms interchangeably? And then also interestingly here, that commenting, just to show you that this here is a shadh narration, that commenting on the same narration, Imam Nasai rahmahullah, after bringing this whole same narration also via Hammam from Ibn Jurayj from Zuhri and Anas and the exact same, then after that Imam Nasai rahmahullah said وَهَذَا الْحَدِيث غَيْرُ مَحْفُوظ. And what did we do the meaning of mahfuz? It's there it's there under the meaning of shaz. The opposite of shaz is mahfuz. So he's saying that this is not mahfuz, meaning it is shaz. So it's a shaz narration, yet Imam Abu Dawud rahmallah used the word munkar. So this one example here is enough to show that Ibn Salah rahmahullah was definitely not ghafil when he regarded both words as synonyms. Rather, he had concrete evidences from the scholars of the past. Actually, the one who denies that the scholars of the past use both interchangeably, he could be called ghafil because he is negligent on how they, the past scholars, used it. And then, so the whole thing here is basically that Ibn Hajar rahmallah is trying to insist and is trying to specify that the meaning of munkar has to be only according to how he is mentioning here, but munkar was never ever confined in this way. In fact, here, if you have to look actually, that Ibn Hajar rahmallah brought, as you can see here, so he's bringing the statement of Abu Zur'a rahmallah, although he's attributing it incorrectly to Abu Hatim. He's saying قال أبو حاتم هو منكر لأنه غيره من الثقات رواه عن أبي إسحاق موقوفا. But it's actually the statement of Abu Zur'a. So both of these scholars, whether it's Abu Hatim rahimahullah, who he's using as his basis and is using as his evidence, both scholars, Abu Zur'a and Abu Hatim, they also, both of them, use the word munkar in the meaning of shaz. So will they then also be called negligent? Because to give you one example, so there is a hadith which Imam Nasai rahmallah narrated, and Ibn Hibban rahmallah narrated. So Ibn Hibban narrated it from Ahmad bin Sayyar, and he narrated from Yusuf bin Adi, who narrated from Asam bin Ali, who narrated from Hisham bin Urwa, who narrated from Urwa, who narrated from Aisha radiallahu anha, that when it would become dark at night, the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam would read, La ilaha illallah al-wahid al-qahhar, Rabbus samawati wal-ardi wa ma baynahum al-aziz al-ghaffar. So this here is how it's narrated. Ibn Hibban also narrates it via Yusuf bin Adi. Likewise, Imam Nasai rahmallah also narrates it via Yusuf bin Adi with another student of his, Muhammad bin Ibrahim al-Abdi. Actually, Muhammad bin Ibrahim al-Abdi, I think he's in Mustadrak Hakim. Imam Hakim rahmallah narrated it from Yusuf bin Adi via his student, Muhammad bin Ibrahim al-Abdi. Imam Nasai, I can't remember now. I think it was Umar bin Abdul Aziz. Yeah, he narrated it from another student of Yusuf bin Adi. So basically, three students of Yusuf bin Adi are narrating this from Yusuf bin Adi. So it's narrated in Mustadrak, it's narrated in Sahih ibn Hibban, and by Imam Nasai rahimahullah. So yeah, obviously this narrator, Yusuf bin Adi, he is a reliable narrator. He's a teacher of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, and there's one place in Sahih al-Bukhari where Imam Bukhari rahimahullah actually narrated from him. Yet this narration here, so it's you have Yusuf bin Adi, but he is contradicting another narrator who is also reliable, Jarir bin Abdul Hamid. So when you have a reliable narrator contradicting another reliable narrator, what it's called, just what we learned now, it's supposed to be called shaz, isn't it? But we find that Abu Zur'a rahimahullah also and Abu Hatim rahimahullah also, both of them. So even if you want to take the statement like how Ibn Hajar rahimahullah mentioned it from Abu Hatim rahimahullah, or you want to take the correct statement from Abu Zur'a, so his entire basis, both of them call this narration munkar. So if you have to look that Ibn Abu Hatim in his ilal, he says that Sa'altu Abi wa Aba Zur'a. I asked both my father and my uncle. I asked my father and Abu Zur'a regarding this narration. An Ḥadīth rawahu Yusuf ibn Adi, an Itham, an Hisham ibn Urwa, عن نبي عن عائشة أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان إذا تزور من الليل قال لا إله إلا الله الواحد القهار رب السماوات ورب الأرض وما بينهما العزيز الغفار. So both of them said هذا خطأ, and so here also that the grading, both of them, although both of them gave the same grading and said هذا خطأ, actually they are incorrect. So the more preferred riwayah is of Yusuf bin Adi. But nevertheless, just to show you how when they saw a reliable narrator contradicting someone who is more reliable, they use the word munkar. So thereafter he says, وقال أبو زرعة حدثنا يوسف بن عدي بهذا الحديث وهو حديث منكر. Immediately after that he says, وسمعت أبي أيضا يقول هذا حديث منكر. So both of them use the word munkar for shaz. So like I said, that although the grade which they pass, the ruling which they pass is not precise, but the objective here is to show how they use the term. that where you have one narrator who is reliable and contradicting another narrator who is reliable, they use the word munkar. So the question then is, will they also fall under this وَقَدْ غَفَلَ مَنْ سَوَّى بَيْنَهُمَا, the very basis? So obviously that is not correct. And then the astonishing thing is that Ibn Hajar rahimahullah also, so like I said, that he's trying to insist here that munkar comes only and only in this meaning. But you find in his nukat, he also then accepted that there were scholars of the past who used it in the meaning of munkar. He says that هذا ينبغي التيقظ له فقد أطلق الإمام أحمد والنسائي وغير واحد من النقاد لفظ المنكر على مجرد التفرد. You can see, so he agreed that many of them used it in the meaning of tafarrud. So ultimately, although the conclusion of all of this here is that although he's trying to specify it, and he's saying that whoever regards munkar in the meaning of shaz, we say that we are learning istilahat to see how the scholars of the past used it. The very scholars who he is quoting for to prove that munkar is restricted to this here, they also use the word munkar in the meaning of shaz. In fact, Imam Abu Zur'a rahmallah, he used the word munkar in 6 different meanings. You know, Sheikh Awama always insists that you should learn how every scholar uses the terminology. So when you look at Abu Zur'a, you find that he used it in 6 different ways. That at times he even used it when you have tafarrud al-thiqa wa huwa mudallis, that a person is reliable but is a mudallis. So then also he used the word munkar. Likewise, he used it when there was a wada'a, a person who is fabricates narration. Then also he used it. So he used it in 6 different meanings. So it's definitely not specified to how Ibn Hajar rahmallah is mentioning here. But what did happen then, looking at the development of the term, is that before Ibn Hajar rahmallah, the scholars, majority of the time, they used it for tafarrud, or they used it for mukhalafa, or they used it for a general mistake. In one of these 3 ways they used it. That was before Ibn Hajar. After Ibn Hajar rahimullah, now they started to use it in the meaning of where you have mukhalafatul da'if. But either mukhalafatul da'if or mukhalafatul ad'af, where you have a weaker person contradicting someone who is slightly weaker, who is slightly better than him, but is also weak. Or they started to use it like how we quoted from Sheikh Abdullah Sirajuddin, where you have mukhalafatul da'if, where a weak narrator is narrating from a thiqa narrator. So alhamdulillah, we have completed this chapter, and we'll continue next week, Thursday. So now it's imtihan. So what I was thinking, just a thought which came to my mind, and it's up to you guys to decide. So generally we see now in imtihan that you have the benefit for the students is that when it's imtihan, then they go through all the lessons again, and they memorize a lot. And at the time when writing the paper, they know the kitab really well. But there's also a benefit for the teacher. So my father, he always tells me that when the students write imtihan, it's actually a test. Like as long as you're a teacher, a student, you understand that you're writing imtihan to see how well you know the work. But when you become a teacher, the imtihan is a test for you to see how well you taught the lesson. Because if everyone in your class is going to get below 30 or below 40, it means you didn't teach the lesson well. So what I was thinking, and it's up to, like I say, it's up to you, not compulsory, that if any of you want to, then next week is our last 2 lessons, and after that, if you want to, preferable, then there'll be, I can give you an imtihan, questions which you can answer. So for you, it's not imtihan because obviously you won't fail, or you won't, there's no passing and failing and no first, second, third, etc. But it's more like just, you can say, it's just to see how well you know the lesson. So if you want to, and if you got the time, then I'll give it to you. And also you can decide when you want it. From the time I give it to you, so generally my practice when I was teaching in maktab, before I used to teach in a maktab, in a madrasa, where class 7, class 8, and class 9s. So from there, and then after that, when I started to teach alim class, it's always my papers are very in-depth. So that's why I give it 24 hours. At any 24 hours, you can decide, and it will take you at least about 3-4 hours to complete the whole thing. It's just like an assessment, so to say, rather, instead of calling it an imtihan, call it assessment. So it's voluntary, whoever wants it. Inshallah, after the lesson on next week Saturday, then whichever time is convenient for you. But from the time I give it to you, it will be 24 hours. So within 24 hours. And then in takhasus also, So in whether it's takhasus fil ifta or takhasus fil hadith, I don't know how the other Darul Ulums work, but in our Darul Ulums, where I studied in, it's basically a student doesn't have to only write what is taught in the lesson, can also write his own research, because takhasus is all about doing your own research as well. And even if you differ with anything that I mentioned, you can even write what I write your proofs and give answers to what I mentioned. So inshallah, like I say, it's voluntary. You can let me know. Until Thursday, Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.